And welcome to the Brazil Expat Journal, the BEJ you can trust. Oh, yeah, that was weird there. I pressed the wrong button, paused it. And I got my buddy with me, Peter. Let me get him on the stage here. What's up, Peter?
Hello, hello, hello.
All right, we are back again. 2 weeks in a row, Pete. Let's see if we can break a record. I think the most we did was like 4 in a row, maybe 5. So we got to get in the rhythm here. Oh, we got somebody in already. Hello, whoever that may be. So, guys, tonight's Brazil Expat Journal is going to be a wild ride. If you saw the thumbnail, we are going to be talking Brazil versus the world. In what sense, right? Because of all the crazy stuff that's going on right now in the world. We got bombing here, bombing there, some stuff real close to home. My friend Imara, who might come on a little bit later, she was the one that actually suggested I do a show when Brazil bombed Venezuela because that really worried her. And is Brazil next? And we did have that issue with Lula and Trump because Trump is a big supporter of the right wing down here, obviously for obvious reasons. So he was a big Bolsonaro guy, and he didn't think that the PT were treating him fairly and all that jazz. And then eventually Lula and Trump met and they became like best buddies, which was the weirdest like plot twist of the year. Like that, as they say, not on the bingo card. Trump and Lula actually becoming besties, although they have a lot more in common than not other than policy, of course. But they're kind of similar type old dudes that just want to kind of do their thing and steal a little bit here, steal a little bit there, and just enjoy their power. So yeah, so it's kind of up and down when it comes to Brazil. It can be worrisome when you're down here and you see all this stuff happening around you, whether it's the war in Ukraine. Now we know U.S. is bombing Iran. You're like, what is going on? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. How to mitigate that, and whether we are happy down here. I want to get Pete's response to that. If any, for any reasons that you're down here, if any of them involves just trying to get away from all the mess that is the northern hemisphere. I know for me, every year that becomes more of a factor of why I'm down here. It wasn't in the beginning, but now it's more and more a factor of why I'm in Brazil and have no desire to go back to the US. It's just the fact that Brazil is not involved in almost anything. So we will talk about that. But then we also have other stories, and other stories just include just dealing with the stuff that's down here, the bureaucracy that's down here, the red tape, all the stuff that you need to do, all the extra steps you need to do to get something simple done. And I'm going to start with a story which has to do with my internet, dealing with that. And then we'll get into the heavier stuff a little bit later. And then definitely want to get Pete in here to hear his journey. But guys, I am changing my internet provider because I am done. I am officially done. And I want to make a clear statement, by the way. Hello, Life is fan of the show. We're thinking about Wednesday, Life is. I know you're a big fan of the show and you're like, oh my God, Phil, pick a day. It's tough. Every year it's tough trying to pick a day. Mondays really worked for a while, but now I'm thinking Wednesday night may be the best night where I'm not so tired and, I'm not all just trying to recover from the weekend. I had a very long weekend. I worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until 6 p.m. And then on Monday, man, I was ready to go on, and then I forgot I had to make up a class with a girl from 7A, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And it was just like my mind was just not in there. So Wednesday may be the day, Life is. But thank you for supporting us, and thank you for following us, whatever day we're on, or listening to the playback. And you had asked a question in the comments in the last video. By the way, guys, check out that last video that we did. It was real cool. We talked a whole lot about sex trafficking and just a tourist kind of what would you say, Pete? It's like your obligations, your when you go to another country, just respect the other country. Just realize things happen in other countries, respect it, and don't do illegal shit, basically, right?
Yeah.
um So we talked a lot about that and some other stuff. So listen back. Thanks everybody that listened to that. But guys, one issue that we have in Brazil, speaking of issues, right? Because the thesis of tonight is basically like, are we happy here? You know, would I rather be here or in Brazil? What's the short answer, Pete? Would you rather be here or Canada right now if you had a choice?
Um, I don't know that I really have a choice though, because I've been away.
Yes.
I've been
I know we're
away for
thinking
so long.
hypotheticals though, in hypothetical terms. If you could just magically, all right, Pete, Canada or US? Or Canada
Yeah,
or US, Canada or Brazil?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's difficult to say. Uh,
Mm,
I mean, like I said, I don't really feel like I have a choice because I don't
mm-hmm.
really have any place to go back to. I've
Yeah.
been away, so like, I don't have property there. My
Mm-hmm.
family is scattered not just all over Canada, but all over the world.
Yeah.
I
But
don't really have like a specific city to go back to. I don't know where I begin. So, yeah, it's not even really something I even think about.
yeah, I feel you. You've been here long enough. Yeah, I think about it sometimes because I sometimes I get this feeling of like, US is a big country, just like Brazil is a big country. So even though we see stuff on the news all the time that's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like 99% of the population is just going on about their lives, and not suffer, not getting shot by ICE agents, let's say. So, the same way that if you look at it the other way around and you watch the news, if you're watching stuff coming from Brazil, you're like, oh my God, everybody's getting shot up every day and this and that and the third. That's not really the reality. It's not to say that things don't happen down here, but you gotta have a vision of the country, like living in it versus what the media pulls out. And yeah, but even then, just knowing everything that's going on in the U.S. and just all the foreign entanglements that the founding fathers told us not to get involved in, it's just not worth it. It's just the idea of terrorist attacks and nuclear bombs and this and that and the third. It's like I want to be away from that stuff. It's not something that I'm down with. So Brazil does become an option for a lot of people because it's far, far away from all that stuff. And despite some of the hurdles that you got to go through to be down here, I'd say yes, Brazil is where I want to be right now. But you got to deal with the BS. Like what happens with the internet. Guys, if you come to Brazil, just realize you're going to have crappy internet. So that's another reason sometimes we don't go on because just the internet is not working. So yesterday, Pete, again, for the umpteenth time, net just died. Like it was, I don't know. Did your internet just go off yesterday, Pete? Because ours did, and it was just done. And it's
No,
like,
not yesterday,
no,
but it's known to happen. No.
yeah. And you know what? When it usually happens is when there's like a big buyout, which is exactly what happened. Because I used to always recommend net internet, just net. It was called before NET. And I'm sure I can find some old posts of mine being like, guys, everybody should get net internet. Get it? I've had it since 2008. But then Claro, this company Claro bought it. Okay, so pay attention to this stuff, folks that are coming down here, because this is the day to day stuff you got to know. Like what phone operator to use. And Claro's always been one of the worst. Uh, I think Vivo has always been the top one. Oi was pretty popular for a while, but I think it kind of faded away. Tim was kind of popular for a while and it kind of faded away. And Claro was always like the redheaded stepchild, but somehow I think it just stuck around long enough. And then Tim and Oi went away that Claro just kind of took over the shitty phone operator market on top of those two other companies, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still a shitty phone operator. And they bought out Net. And that was about what, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe that Claro bought out Net. And ever since then, the service has been horrendous, and it's just slow. They say it's 10 megas or whatever it is, but it feels like it's 2 megas, and it definitely affects us, people like us that work online. So if you're a digital nomad and you're coming down to Brazil, guys, please check your internet, and it's worth it to pay a little bit more, okay, but get good service that doesn't cut out. So with that being said, I I'm done with those guys. I did beat yesterday. I called them, and first, it's really difficult to get to a person. So you get all those little, "Aperta if you were, and it's a really long. It's not like in an American system where it's like to talk to a da da da, press one. To talk to a da 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 da, press two. To talk to, it's like, you know how the Brazilian way is. It's like, good evening. How are you? My name is Joanna, your digital assistant, and I'm here to help you get all of the things that you want done. Like there's a long introduction before the bitch even says, if you want da 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 da, press one. And it's not, and it's, although I think yesterday they did it. The first one was like if you have no internet, but sometimes if you have no internet, it's like the sixth option. So you got to listen to all these bullshit options before you get to six, and you can't skip because, well, you don't know where it is because maybe they change it. Sometimes it's five. Anyway, I was already frustrated because of that. So then I'm thinking to myself, all right, I get through. The automated system tells me that, yes, we're checking, and it seems like your actual modem is fucked up. So do you want to call up Guy to come in the next day? So here's the next thing, guys. Just be very ready for this. The guys, if you, well, that's like in the US. I'm not, that's not a that's not specific to Brazil, but if you schedule between 8 and 11, it's very likely that they're going to come at 10:59. So, but I was desperate because I got to teach. I teach online, guys. That's how I make my money. And I asked for that time slot, 8 to 11, emergency, turn on my internet. And then I realized that after I hung up, I was like, fuck, if these guys come late, I'm going to be late to work. Then I'm really screwed. So I called back. And this time I got somebody. Like it's like Indiana Jones, like figuring out the clues to finally get to a person. They make it very difficult to get to a person. Although, again, I don't think that's a Brazil thing. I think these automated systems are built like that around the world. So when I finally get to this person, well, guys, I mean, they're not the brightest, right? I mean, it's a call center, Pete. I mean, not to judge too much, but they're reading off a script, and I definitely go off script quite a bit. And so I'm trying to get my the thing canceled, which should be like a very easy thing to do. Just like, hey, this is my name. Like if I'm in the US, this is my social security number, which they would never ask, but imagine because they ask for the CPF for everything. That's like your social security number. You give them your number, give them your name. I want to cancel this service. I just called. Like they may ask, like, oh, what's the address? What's this? Ask a few questions. And apparently enough people have called to cancel services to other people's house where they feel they need extra security, to the point where she said, yeah, I'm going to send a code to your email. Well, first she said to a phone number, but I was like, I can't get to this phone number. Like it's an old number. I thought I had switched it to the new number already, but like I don't have that chip. Unless you send it through WhatsApp, I can't get this token. So she's like, okay, I'll send it to your email. And that's where I was like, dude, come on. Like, it's already taken 5 minutes just to ask you to cancel something. And now you're asking me to send you a token that's going to go to my email. Did you miss the part where I said I have no internet? And then she's like, yeah, but there's no other way to do it. I have to send it to your net. And I'm like, but then I started to get heated. I'm like, bitch. I didn't call her bitch, but I was like, oh, por favor. Você não tá entendendo, né? Aren't you getting it? What's going on here? Like, how am I going to get you this code? Anyway, long story short, I called her retarded. I called her like, você é muito burra, right? And she got offended, which she should have, because that was kind of nasty of me to say, but she deserved it. But then I realized she didn't really deserve it. So I apologized to her and I told her, okay, you're not retarded. Your company is. And they're making you say dumb shit to make you look retarded. So you should complain to them. And then she hung up in my face. So I had to call back. And then finally, after 20 minutes, and the worst part is my phone was almost dying because I don't know, other story. My charger broke, so I'm like at 1%. Pete, when you kind of gotta call somebody and you're like stuck to the wall so that your phone keeps charging while you're calling. So I'm stressed out. Eventually, I get this other lady, and then the other lady says that no, it's not the modem, it's just the region. is bad. And apparently, the second lady was right because I got internet now, as you can see. But I was so mad at everything, and then eventually I was able to cancel. Luckily for me, the internet would come back in intervals, and it came back in an interval long enough for me to give her this number. But otherwise, the service guy would have come if I wasn't home, and that's the thing that they do too. And I told her, I called her out on her game. I said, I get your game, I get your racket. You're gonna get me to call this dude, and then if he's not here, you're gonna charge me $50. I'm like, I don't know. I was done with them, so I made the decision. I'm done with Net Claro. I am telling you the story, basically, all my fellow listeners, to tell you, do not get Net Claro unless you really don't use the internet for much, because it's not bad. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and shit on it completely. It's just there's way more outages than I've ever experienced ever using net. Like net never used to go out, and if it did, it was like back, like super fast. And net claro, it goes out so much, always at inconvenient times. It's slow as hell, which is why we have all these lag issues when I'm on StreamYard. So it's over, net. I love you. I loved you. And it was great while it lasted. But now I'm going to go into Vivo. And I've had Vivo before. I was actually one of the first phone companies that I used when I came down here in Brazil. It's just a little bit more expensive. The prices went down for the internet services. But at the start, Vivo was at least 50 to 100 reais more than Net Claro. And since, I ain't got all that all the time, I was like, nah, I'd rather stay with my mid-range priced internet. But now the difference is like, it's very striking, the difference in service. So we shall see. I posted something on my WhatsApp status about this, and a friend actually worked at Vivo, and he's like, Vivo's great. The only problem is if something does fuck up, like their service is like worse than Claro. So he's like, the silver lining is that shit rarely, if ever, fucks up. And he actually worked at the call center, so he's like, yeah, I was like inside. It's a mess. Anyway, that's my little story, my little frustrating story. Like last week, I was venting about how racist Brazil is. Today, I'm venting about how incompetent Brazil is with its service industry. And I would say, Peter, and then I want to get you in here, is for me, the thing that kills Brazil the most is the service industry. Like, and it usually ranks very low. If you look up any rankings of service in Brazil, it's one of the lowest around the world. But I actually will look that up as Pete talks. What are your thoughts on this? What are your red tape horror stories?
Just the usual, the simple stuff like getting your transit card, for example. That can be kind of a chore because last time I did it, actually, I think it was first of all you needed photo ID, you
Oh
needed to have your
yes.
CPF number, and but first of all, you actually had to register on a website, which was something you hadn't had to do previously. So you have to register on the website, which is all in Portuguese, and then have all your shit ready. And then even when you go in and get it, you have to come back again like 3 days later to pick it up. So yeah, that's kind of unnecessary. I don't know that Brazil's the most bureaucratic country I've ever been in, though. Um, Thailand was pretty bad with stuff like that. Especially, I mean, the visa situation. Of course, I've been applying for a work visa now for over 3 years. Part of that is my employer's reluctance to hire a lawyer. She's kind of been trying to do it on her own, and yeah, just basically getting snowed. Like they say, like, okay, we need this, this, and this. Pay some fees, submit the documents. You don't hear anything, and then they send everything back and say, no, we need more. We need, I don't know, this. And I think the last time they sent it back and they're like, yeah, no, this isn't enough. What do you need? Well, you need to talk to a lawyer. So basically, the entire immigration process here needs to be handled through a lawyer, which is, it's different than China or Thailand. In Thailand, I mean, you can stay in the country pretty much indefinitely, but you also have to make constant trips to the police and exit the country about 4 to 6 times a year on visa runs,
Yeah.
which is expensive and inconvenient. You lose money doing it. It takes up time. I mean, at least Brazil, basically, if you have something in progress, they're not really going to sweat it too much. In Thailand, if you get caught there as an illegal and you can't pay the fine, they'll throw you in jail.
You are
Uh,
done. Wow.
yeah, so there's that.
Speaking Well, Pete, speaking of Thailand, we're gonna have a guest on very soon who is in Thailand right now, and that's the little foreshadowing that I gave last week, how it's gonna become the Brazil Expat Journal and beyond. So we will be talking to some expats all around the world, not just in Brazil, but always trying to bring it back to a Brazil connection. But yeah, I can imagine that a lot of these countries, I can imagine China is a country that is full of bureaucracy. These countries with these big governments, and Brazil's got a big government, guys. It's very inflated, the government down here. That's why there's a lot of corruption too. And there's a lot of corruption and a lot of inflation. Why? Because there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of steps, So it's frustrating because you see that it's being done just to to milk a little extra money out of you, because it's like you need that extra stamp. Pete, in the high school that I work at, I teach U.S. history, and when we get to the Stamp Act and all that stuff that started the American Revolution, basically, like all this hatred towards the English and their taxes, I just think of how crazy any of those founding fathers wouldn't last a day in current day America, but down here they would just have like their heads would blow off because all that stuff, Because when I was a kid, I, you're a kid, you're half paying attention in class, so I knew what the Stamp Act was, but I was like, oh, I didn't realize it's actually just like those annoying people when you go to the cartario that are just stamping papers and they're charging for this. Because I'm like, is it like collectible stamps? Because I used to collect stamps, but I was like, oh no, it's these other stamps. So that's that when you get down here. So be prepared to for 5 steps, even for doing something as simple as buying a cell phone. And then, Pete and I have had this experience because Pete usually helps me when I go out to buy a new computer every 10 years or so. It's coming soon, guys. I think this computer is about in its last year. It needs to survive one more year, please. Um, and man, it takes like 5 people for you to buy a computer because it's the guy that's going to show you the computer, who's then going to hand off to the guy who's going to pick up the computer, who then is going to hand off to the girl who's going to actually register the computer that you bought, who then will hand it out to the cashier, who then's going to hand it over to the guy who's going to inspect to make sure that you got the computer that's on the paperwork is the computer that's on the box, and then if you want, there might even be another person if you want to get insurance or not insurance, a warranty or whatnot on it, guys. That's why I try to stay away from getting these things, like getting all the computers, cell phones, as long as possible because it's a process. You are in there for like an hour basically, right, Pete? How long does it take us to get a computer? I mean, taking away the time where we're just kind of, sort of shopping, but I'm pretty objective. I kind of know what I want and don't want. That lasts like 15 minutes tops. How long after that? Like another 40 minutes?
Yeah, yeah, close to it.
Man, that's a lot. I mean, I bought stuff in the US. I know you got to get some paperwork done, but if you're coming from a first world country, that's the part that's annoying. And it's kind of sad because a bit of it is Brazil's own fault. Because one, you got the politicians that are just trying to milk you for everything. So they're adding all these extra steps. But then regular people do it back. Imada's on right now. She's on the chat there. She might come on live. But we were talking about that when it comes to the bureaucracy because she was getting a bus ticket. Speaking of the bus pass down here, and she was asking me, Phil, how do you do this? Do I just go down to the terminal and get one? I was like, once upon a time, it was that simple, you know? And now it's like you actually have to go on the website, register everything, put your address, your documents, da 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 da, send a picture. They have to approve the picture, send you something back. and then you pay a fee, and then you gotta wait till they send you an email, and it could last like a week, it could be 4 days, and then only after that you have to wait in a line down at the bus terminal so that you can get your card that's gonna have your picture on it. And it's like, wow, why all of this just for a bus pass? Because I told her, a lot of people don't know this, but way back in the day, at least as far back as I've been here, maybe 12 years ago or so, um, people would actually sell their bus credit because, again, the whole system's cheating you, so you figure out ways to cheat the system. The salary here is very low, so when you go to a job listing, it'll say 2,000 reais a month, 3,000 reais a month, and you're like a starting job, so you're like, okay, that's actually a really good salary for a starting position in Brazilian terms. But then you read the fine print, it's like 500 of that they're going to take away for food. It's like, well, I'd rather choose how I eat, but okay, or, how I spend on my own food, but the company knows better. The government knows better, basically. So they take out for that. They take out for your retirement. Boom, And the one that kills you is they take out for transport. And that could be like 700 bucks, whatever. It could be like 10% of your salary almost, when they cut out that transport. And what do people do? Well, they would go to a newsstand, and I've seen this happen. Actually, I knew the guy that used to do this, and I just never needed him because I would actually put money on my bus pass from my own pocket because I was a freelancer at the time. Uh, but my boyfriend at the time, he was working, and he would get money into his bilhete único, his bus pass. He'd go to the newsstand, he'd sell the credits to the guy. The guy would give him the cash. He'd keep some of it because then he'd be able to resell those credits to people like me. Because I would have the ability to either buy credits at the actual terminal, or if I'm walking down the street and I'm a little late for work and I don't have time to go in the metro, I can stop at a newsstand and it'll be like, yeah, you can recharge your bus pass here. But he's recharging my card from credits that he took from another card. And that's where you say Brazilians need to be studied by NASA. That's the famous phrase down here because they're so ingenious. But it's all these ways to get around a system that's built against them. So what happens is that then the government bites back. So then the government bites back by saying, oh, one, those guys were gone. And I was telling Imada about this because during COVID, man, I had about 2,000, I think it stopped around 2,000 reais of money that was just accumulating on my bus pass. And I had no way to get it out, because I was like, man, and I was even on Facebook groups like, yo, where are those guys that used to buy credit? Like you know, like I can pay my rent, like 2 months rent here, off of this bus pass money because I'm not going anywhere, right? It was COVID. So imagine every month I'm getting 500 in the bank. Do the math. I had quite a bit of money by the end of COVID. And that pissed me off so bad, but that's because the government stepped in and was like, "Oh no, we're cutting that shit out." But then what does that do? That screws us. That screws my friend Imada and Pete, who have to go through all these extra steps to get something so simple done. You know, but that's part of living in Brazil, unfortunately. Let me show you something else before we move on to Iran or Iran, however you prefer to pronounce that. By the way, I on the screen here, I had something about general satisfaction is often lower in Brazil. In a national survey, only 28% of Brazilians said they were satisfied with customer service. 28%, y'all, is really bad down here. And that's Brazilians. That's not like some foreigner coming in and saying, well, this is how we do it in England. No, this is like actual Brazilians saying the service sucks. Uh, what was I gonna look up? I should have said it before I moved on because now I forgot. Um, oh, this guys. What is a despachante, and how can I use one in Brazil to make my life easier when it comes to getting documentation? So there was, we're in a lot of groups, guys. We're in some Facebook groups. I'm talking about we like expats in general. I know some of you may know me from Worldwide Expats in Brazil, the original. I'm in the Black Expats in Brazil on Facebook. We have a WhatsApp group, so we're all over the place. And people ask questions, and one of the main questions is like, "Oh my God, how do I get my documents? How do I get my Cine a guy like Pete was talking about my I muted you for a second there, Pete. Sorry. Uh, it- how can I get my national naturalization card, et cetera, et cetera? And again, it's processes, guys. Mainly the places that you want to go to is Polícia Federal. You want to go on their site first, but it's complicated. It's not an easy thing to do. There's the Portal, Polícia Federal. That's the federal police, which is this place out in Lapa, São Paulo, not São Paulo, not Lapa. What do you call it? In Rio. And when you go to the building, that's where you get all your stuff done. Look, passports, migration, if you're getting your criminal background checks, if you want to buy a gun, chemical products, not sure what that's for, and then private security. Producer scheme, maybe if you want to bring stuff in, yeah, that's what it is. If you're working with imports and exports, guys, everything is here on this site, and find a Brazilian who's willing to help you figure out how to navigate it and have fun. But as you can see, it's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of information and it's all in Portuguese. I don't know if there's a way to translate here. I've never had to do it because, as I said many times, I'm actually Brazilian. I was born here. So I kind of was able to skip some of this stuff that people go through, although I did want to get a Brazilian passport, and that was a pain in the ass. And I had to go 3 times to the federal police building in Lapa. Now, this is the thing that usually happens, and it just happened very recently to another friend of mine who was calling me literally crying. Like you get in tears sometimes because it's like it's the classic public servant, right? They just I don't know. The last thing that they seem like they want to do is actually serve the public. And so um, you go there and it's not a welcoming place. Information is vague. And sometimes the information on the website is not what's been updated, which is what happened to me. Like I went down the list of everything. Pete, do me a favor, dude. Mute yourself. And then if you're going to say something, unmute, because I'm muting you and then unmuting you in case you're trying to say something and I miss it. But if you mute yourself, it'll be easier. Yeah, because that sound is really bad. Thank you, bro. So, guys, when you go down to the Policia Federal, no, it's easier to concentrate here. That's why it's kind of like, um, a lot of times what's on the site is not the same as what's been updated. So you'll always forget a piece of paperwork or a document. Like this is classic Polícia Federal. It's like you forgot to bring this. And another thing that usually will get you sent back home, back to start, is you brought all of the documents, but you didn't realize it. There was like this tiny, tiny fine print that was like they all need to be copies and notarized. So then you go to the cartari, or maybe you got to go to a specific agency that's going to get the stamp. Now we're back to the Stamp Act. So it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's frustrating. There's not much you can do about it. It seems like it's a joke. It seems like we're all just saying this just to scare you. Dude, I don't know many people or any that have had just a smooth trip to the Policia Federal. It's almost as if it's like, Pete, in like fight sports, it's like the hazing ceremony. It's like, you really want to be in Brazil? All right, let's see if you really want to be in Brazil. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe I figured it out after all these years. Maybe Policia Federal is your first step to really test, can you handle this country? Because I mean, I went there. I had already been here for like 5, 6 years when I tried to get a Brazilian passport. So I kind of already knew, and it still got me. Like I went 3 times, people, 3 times. And the second time, the first day, I got sent back because I forgot what it was. It was some bullshit that I was like, what? The second day, you like check the irony of this. It was Public Servants Day. I didn't know that that was a public holiday. So I went there. Everything was closed and it was just said Public Servants Day. And I was like, fuck you, people. And then I went the third time, and third time was the charm, and I brought the right paperwork. But yeah, guys, get copies of everything, notarize it, translate it. If it's translated, make sure it's juramentado, like it's done like through a actual official translator, not your friend Jim or Google Translate. Okay, everything's got to go through official channels, and it's especially difficult if you've lost documents. Like, I have like 5 copies of my birth certificate. Seriously, because I'm so scared of like if I ever lose this. Actually, I those of you that were following me last year, I had that little issue that I lost my wallet, which I found, by the way. Speaking of Imada, that was another Imada story because I was heading to her house when I lost it, and I lost it really for about a month until I found it. But when I went to get my new document, right, and the lady almost had me crying. Like, I actually did cry because she asked me for my birth certificate to just give me a document that's been in the system for over 10 years or whatever, 2008, that I got here, that I already took the picture for. I already brought in like, I already did all the steps. Like, I don't need to prove again that I am actually me, right? But in Brazil, you really need to prove you are who you are because there's so many cases of fraud. So, I mean, the bright side of this is that Brazil has some of the best banking systems in the world. Like, the world studies Brazil because of this, especially with the Pix and like the cybersecurity. Even though Itaú, what's up with your app? Like, I've been having real issues with the Itaú app, and usually Itaú is a really great bank, but they've built a fortress around banks. Even if you get down here, you'll notice that a lot of the banks have like these little partitions, these little glass partitions between you and the people waiting to see the cashier and the people in line to the cashier. Why? Because way back when, again, this is when I was first down here, there was these crimes called saidinhas, like the little exits. And what would happen is somebody would be in the bank watching, seeing how much you take out, if you're depositing, if you're withdrawing. And if they withdrew a nice amount, they would call their little buddy on the cell phone or send him a message and be like, yo, blue dress, white sneakers. It's in the purse. And then somebody would be waiting for you outside. That's how Brazil operates. Until banks, one, had to ban cell phones, although they saw that that was kind of difficult to do. So then they kind of, gave up on that idea, and they started putting those little partitions so people can't see what you're doing. And so all this extra security, unfortunately, is because Brazilians, it's like a snake eating its own tail. It's like, what came first? The corruption or the corruption, because it's on both sides. It's on the day-to-day level, but I get it. You got to be a swindler to be able to outswindle the actual swindlers, which are the ones that just built the whole motherfucking system. Woo, it's a lot, people. It's a lot. But getting back to this despachante, so is that somebody had asked in the group about that? How do I get this, that, and the third? And my friend Elisa, shout out to Elisa, one of the first. I think she was the third guest ever on the show, and this maybe the first or second person that I met in Brazil that I'm still friends with to this day, and I love her. That's my soul sister. And she gave the simplest answer that I can't believe I never thought about this before, because it is the simplest answer, guys. Get a despachante. Okay, so a despachante is a licensed documentation agency who specializes in navigating Brazilian bureaucracy on your behalf. Guys, it costs some money, but it will save you some stress. Think of them as a paperwork fixer, a government process specialist, often a vehicle documentation expert, sometimes a business registration facilitator. They're very common in Brazil because government procedures can be complex, time consuming, and vary by city and state. Why despachantes exist in Brazil? Brazil has federal rules, state level rules. That'll kill you, right? Because I mean, America also has federal and state government, but it's very clear in American law that federal law usurps everything. It's the top, right? So if a state law contradicts the federal law, it's not a law. Okay, the state law is not a law. It's just going to be cut out. In Brazil, it's not always like that. Sometimes the state law, it's like state rights supersede. I think that's what I meant to say, not usurp. Supersede federal law. You know, depending on the occasion, or it's equal, and it can be really confusing. I used to teach a lawyer who would always have to argue this because of the half off ticket prices in Brazil. And it's like the state says one thing, but the federal law says another. Because in the state, he tried to get some tickets and they were sold out. And he's like, no, but by law, I have the right to get half off regardless. Like you always have to have one available. And they're like, no. And he's a lawyer. So he's like, yeah, but federal law is like, this is the right of all Brazilians to enjoy entertainment, which can be interpreted as blah, blah. And then he did his lawyer shit and got in for half off. Anyway, that can be complicated, right? Very complicated. We got municipal level. Yeah, and then you got the municipal level. And they're not all talking to each other, right? There's a lot of procedural changes all the time. That's where people get screwed up at the Polícia Federal, because you were reading something on the website that was there like from 6 months ago, and the rule changed, and nobody called you to let you know. And then you take 3 hours on the bus to get to Lapa, and you want to curse the world after you leave there. Trust me, guys. Yeah, I've lost some of my patience in Brazil. I used to be way more chill, but Brazil kind of takes that out of you. Many processes require certified copies, like I had said, recognized signatures. That's what I'm saying. Firma reconhecida. So it can't just be a signature. It's got to be a boop, little stamp. Sworn translations, which I had talked about too, right? In-person appointments. So yeah, you can't just do everything via a Zoom call. In specific payment slips. Oh, the GRU and the DARF. Oh my God, I gotta actually pay a few of these. I'm behind on some payments, guys. And then as despachante, yeah, because you can't pay all these things in the same place. Some of them you can, but not all of them. A despachante knows which office to go to, which documents are really required, because that's another thing. They'll give you like a list of like 100 things. I wish I could find my list. I should at some point and show you guys when I first got this job that I still work at this high school 8 years ago. And I got hired in November, and I had until the beginning of the school year to get like, I think it was about 10 documents. It was insane. And it's the end of the year. It's about Christmas time. I'm like, what? I only had 2 weeks, you know? And I was running up and down the city. I was getting this document called a PIS. That's a weird name, PIS, but that's what it is, PIS. I needed to get my INSS documentation so I can get Social Security retirement money. I needed to open up an FGTS so that I can get, it's this other account. It's money that you can't touch, which is fucked up, because it's fucked up because I want that money, but I get it. Like the government knows better than the people. So it keeps that money there. And then when you retire, when you quit, you can get that money, and then you can only use it to invest in a home. Okay. It's weird, but that's the FGTS. And then you gotta, I think there's the ISS also that I had to sign up for. So then I had to go to Caixa Econômica, and then dude, I was running around the city, and then you wonder why Phil's a tour guide, okay? Because I know this motherfucking city. I've been run all over it. And what can a dispatchante help you with? Vehicle documentation is the most common. You see them all the time for that, because it's out of all of them, it's the easiest, but kind of boring. Nobody likes the DMV. Immigration and federal police issues. That is the one that you might want to hire them for. Business formation. So if you want to start a business, okay, and even a small business, although that's kind of easy to start a small business. I did that one on my own. CPF notarization. Okay, so if you got to get your CPF, and what is the CPS? Not CPS, but CPF. For those that do not know, is the it's your federal PIN number. You know, it's like your Social Security. Okay, how much does this despachante cost, guys? Look, I mean, if you're thinking in dollars, guys, you're gonna be paying so little and saving so much time and saving so much of your headaches. So simple documentation between 200 and 600. So let's go high end. 600 reais. That's $100, I guess. Is that, am I doing the math right? You know, 1,200 reais. Do the math, right? It's worth it. Sometimes in Brazil, it's just worth it to pay the piper, get stuff done, hire a lawyer. Yeah, because you're just the amount of time you're gonna save, the amount of brain power you're gonna save, and sometimes the amount of money. Because every time that you got to make these return trips to the Policia Federal, sometimes you're spending $100 because you need to pay that fee again for whatever service that you need to do again. So it adds up too, having to go all the way out there. If you're not packing your own lunch, then you got to eat out and, this, that, and the third. When you see things add up, make sure that the despachantes are legit. Make sure they have a CNPJ, which is a business registration number, that they provide receipts. And usually around the consulates here and the Policia Federal, you'll see a lot of despachante services. But as with most things in Brazil, get a referral, guys. That's the safest way to do it. And get a referral from another gringo. Be clear on the scope of what they're going to do. Don't hand over original documents without receipts, please. And look at this. This is how I explain it on air. In Brazil, there's something called a despachante, basically a professional. Is it worth it? Yeah, guys, it is worth it. So this guy's not a lawyer. Okay, he does not bribe officials, so this is an official job, guys. It's not like you're just paying somebody to go under the table, and he does not skip legal requirements. They just know how to navigate things, and because it's almost, if you think of like in legal terms in the US, they have the paralegals, right? Who have a little bit of power to move around, kind of get things, they know where they are, and they get in front of the line. That's the thing. That's the key thing with the despachante, is that they'll just be able to skip in the line, and that's always good, right? Anyway, guys, let's move on to another topic here. And that's a topic that's the main issue of the evening. I just was kind of waiting to have more people on. Thank you, everybody that is on. Uh, it's tough keeping this show on the air, but we're doing our best, trying to find the right time to do it, etc., etc. I do love it that when we are a bit more consistent, we do get you guys listening in and participating. So thank you. Ilkamiloinla. Can I ever say your name correctly? Okay, help me with that. Because, and he says the bureaucracy will be interesting. I'm a pretty patient person. Well, can I tell you something, L? I'm going to call you L. Um, I am too. I am too. I think, well, no. I take that back. I always say I'm very tolerant, maybe patient, not so much. And I had to learn patience in Brazil. Learn how to just like, what's that thing with Alcoholics Anonymous? Like, accept the things you can. Like, there's a whole little phrase from Alcoholics Anonymous. Have the power to understand the things I can change, the things I can't, and the will to know when. Peter, you on? You can come back in, bro. And sorry about that. In Brazil, it's kind of an Alcoholics Anonymous program. Like, you kind of just, you go through all the steps, and then eventually you get to that step of like, I've just learned to accept that I can't change shit. I can maneuver around it. I can get help. That's another thing that I learned how to do in Brazil, because I never knew how to ask for help. And in Brazil, you need to humble yourself and be able to ask for help, be able to like, yeah, I'm stupid, be able to tell yourself that, and not be ashamed of it, because it's just, it's complicated. I don't know how to describe it, because when you look at it on the surface, it's not that much different than the US. And after you kind of figure it out, you're like, man, what was I crying so much about back then? But when you get into those loops, like the lady yesterday with me on the phone, or like the story that I think I've told on the air before of this dude that came to a school where I used to work, but he was here for like 2 weeks because he's like, I'm done. Why? Because he needed to get this CPF. He went to the one agency that said, yeah, but we need a letter from this other agency. But when you went to the other agency, they just said, yeah, but we need a CPF to give you this letter. So he was in the loop. He was in that endless like bureaucracy loop that he was never going to get out of. And then his phone got pickpocketed to add insult to injury. So he's like, F Brazil. He was out, man. He didn't last 3 weeks here. Poor dude. But I get it. I get it. It's a complicated place. In fact, there was a girl on Instagram, right? We were looking at in, well, it's it's public. Am I allowed to share? I do it out of respect. Dr. Monaco. Look at this. Look at this video, guys.
Told me don't give up on Sao Paulo just yet. Because Sao Paulo does have the largest black population in the country because it's the biggest city. But it's so hard to navigate the city as a tourist, y'all. I'm getting emotional because it's so hard. Rio was easy. It's hard to navigate in Sao Paulo. And I don't even know why I'm crying, but it's like every other place is easy to find community. It's hard to find it here. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can just like go out to like a club, but I'm not a club person for real, for real. So it's like, where are the people here? Like, then the Portuguese is stressing me the fuck out. I'm taking these 2 classes to learn it, but it's something about this language is not as easy as Spanish. And it's just like, I miss being in my Spanish speaking countries. Like, because why is this making me emotional? So a few people have reached out to me and told me don't give up on Sao Paulo just yet. Because
Guys, she is not exaggerating. I really felt for her. I wrote on the page here, I said, hey there, sorry to see you're going through it. Sao Paulo is rough at the start. I always describe it as a city you have to work for, but that gives a lot back compared to somewhere like Rio de Janeiro, which kind of shows you what it's about as soon as you get off the plane. The black community here is fire, though. They are organized more in the suburbs. That said, downtown Sao Paulo is very cool. It's where I help run a cultural center, and then I did that video with Ace Live a few years back, and it showed a little bit of the city. And long story short here, Sao Paulo is a tough city to manage. It can get you emotional like this, but Brazil in general can get you emotional like this, right? Um, so what she's experiencing here is more specific to like finding black community down here, but even just finding a community down here sometimes, like making friends. How many times I've had friends call me crying because why did this person leave me? Or, like I thought we were gonna be best friends and then they just out of nowhere disappeared. It's like, yeah, guys, it's a whole nother beast down here. But going back to the original question though, would I rather be here or in the US, especially given all of the crazy stuff going on around the world? And I don't think it's much of a question, right? 100%. Because after you figure out how to manage this, and it's quite possible to manage this, it's not impossible to manage this. Brazil has so much more positive things to offer than negative things that yeah, I can't see myself ever going back to the US. And what are the positive things? The positive things are a lot of what I share with you guys, whether on Instagram or here on the show. It's the community that you can build when you get down here. It's the just simple stuff like just the music and the food and nature, and I get it. As expats, we can organize our lives a bit in so that we can kind of be above that. We are a little bit privileged, let's not fool ourselves, because the average Brazilian sometimes can't enjoy those very things that we enjoy in their country, right? But but at the same time, we can't deny what reality is. So if we have access to those things, we should be able to appreciate them as much as we want, right? Respectfully. So when I'm visiting like small towns and little fitas on the weekend, it's like, I have the weekends free. Almost every weekend I have free. You know, that's something I've worked for. I've worked very hard so that I can afford to live and still have the weekend free to be able to explore. That's a privilege. That's a wonderful thing. These are things that make me attracted to Brazil more than the US, where you're stuck in the rat race. You can get out, but even when you're out, it doesn't feel like you're totally out, because of what's going on with the US around the world. What's going on here? Yeah, but she was a non-responsive when the people were reaching out to her under the vid. Yeah, I saw that she started liking stuff. Sometimes people put stuff out and they're like just emotional for the moment, and then they're later like, "Oh my god, I didn't know this was gonna be viral." Who knows? But I hope she does okay. I told her if she wants to reach out, I'm here. So when you come to Brazil, though, should you worry about these things or not? Should you have it in your mind like, "Oh my god, World War III is going to break out and Brazil is going to be involved"? Well, I would say no. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why I say no. And that even includes, Brazil was bombing Venezuela last month, and Imara what was this with Ecuador? Did the US just bomb Ecuador? I'm sorry if I said Brazil was bombing Ecuador. It's the US. USA bombs Ecuador. Is this something that's happening here? Pete disappeared now. He went muted. He muted himself for good. Oh yeah, yeah. Look at that. Trump administration launches U.S. military launch in Ecuador. I say that. Let me see here. So yeah, so there's more stuff here. U.S. and Ecuadorian forces launch joint drug trafficking operation to fight drug trafficking. It seems like it's a joint action. Um, but in either case, guys, America has always had an interest in Latin America, and that goes back to the Cold War, right? We all know that because the Soviets also had an interest in this part of the world. So unfortunately, it's a big old game that's being played by these powers up in the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere just kind of sways with wherever things seem to be going. And Brazil is like the biggest prize of them all because it's a really big country. It's rich in resources, but it's not a country that actually has any real agency, I don't feel, or actual real uh, plays any real stake in global politics. It just doesn't. It never has. In fact, I think it was Israel a few years back. Pete, do you remember this? Pete, turn on your mic, man. Come back to the show. Pete, I think, went to sleep. Um, what do you call it? I think it was Israel or some country that called Brazil a diplomatic dwarf. Do you remember who called Brazil a diplomatic dwarf, Pete? I forgot.
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, who thinks about Brazil outside of Brazil? Like, the world is not worried about what Brazil's next move is. When during World War II, Brazil sent what, like 1,000 troops out to fight the war. So Brazil's there to help. It usually sides more with the West. This has just historically been the way it goes. But during the 40s, the 50s, it did start moving a bit more towards the Soviets. And then Brazil currently, with the current president, does support the Palestinians and more of the Muslim side of the Middle East than the Israelis, than it's been, than the last president, let's say Bolsonaro. So there's been a few more shifts. And whenever there are shifts like that, you kind of worry a little bit because America does try to Wait 1 second. Ooh, that's loud. Um, so when you see these ships, it is worrisome because America pretty much, I know after, well, the Cold War, is it over? Is it not over? But obviously, Russia doesn't have as much pull as it did back when the Cold War was on. And the US is kind of the one that's left. I mean, China has come in, and you can see how much influence the US has, China has had on this part of the world, and America doesn't like that. America liked that. Hey, after the Cold War, yeah, these countries can have a few leftist presidents here, a few kind of progressive presidents there, but they're not organized enough to actually become a threat to us. So we'll just have good relations with them, let them have their little samba, their little soccer, their little this. But who takes these countries down here seriously? And that's just like, I'm not saying that to down Brazil. I love Brazil, but not even Brazilians take Brazil seriously, right? So I think right now, everybody's got something to say. Like I was just reading an official notice from the U.S. government. I mean, from the Brazilian government. Oh, I gotta go in. No, I don't. And it says United States. Wait 1 second. United States and Israeli attacks in Iran. The Brazilian government condemns and expresses grave concern over the attacks carried out today, February 28th, by the United States and Israel against targets in Iran. The attacks occurred amid an ongoing negotiation process between the parties, which is the only viable path to peace, a position traditionally upheld by Brazil in the region. So Brazil's always been like the peacemaker place. I don't know if anybody's ever watched Captain Planet, but it used to be so embarrassing for me when I was a kid because everybody had cool powers, but the kid from Brazil had heart, which really pissed me off because I'm like, man, I mean, I came from Sao Paulo. So I knew that Sao Paulo, you got to have more than heart to survive those streets, man. Because I was here till about 6. That's long enough to know that you got to fight a little bit to survive. Um, but that's a representation of Brazil, though. That is the representation of Brazil to the world. Is that the Pete? I'm turning you off a little bit because it's really loud. The feedback. Sorry about that, dude. Um, the the way the world sees Brazil is exactly that, though. It's just a country that's just like, yeah, like whatever Brazil says, they're lovely people, right? Does anybody really take Brazil seriously? No. Let me say, look, Brazil, diplomatic, diplomatic dwarf. Who said that? And Brazilians got really, really, really upset about that, which I guess that okay, the term diplomatic dwarf was famously used by Israeli Foreign Minister spokesperson Yego Palmore in July 2014 to describe Brazil after it recalled its ambassador to protest Israeli actions in Gaza, labeling Brazil an economic giant but a minor player in international diplomacy. And that's where it is. And I think Brazilians get that screwed up, or at least the Brazilian government gets that screwed up, where they think just because we are, in fact, an economic giant, although, it's up and down. But there was a time, once upon a time, when I think Brazil surpassed England, wasn't it? In France, as what, the fifth largest economy? I forgot now exactly, but that famous Economist cover where the Christ statue is in a jet going up into the sky because Brazil was having a boom that came from its commodities, not because there was actually industrialization to the point where Brazil was becoming a first world nation. No, it capitalized on what makes a developing nation, which is their agricultural industry. So Brazil didn't actually grow in an important sense of like actually having the country evolve and get closer to becoming a first world nation, which would be great because if Brazil had first world status, man, you know? And imagine if it was done the Brazilian way, which is a bit more ecological, a bit more in touch with nature, but things actually function, less corruption, roads were clean. And there's places in Brazil that are like that. There's little cities in Brazil that are like that. And when you see that side of Brazil that actually operates, where there's actually zero crime, where you can actually walk at night around 10, 11, 12, 1 in the morning and not worry about your phone getting stolen. And there are plenty of places in Brazil that where this happened, but there are these little conclaves, these little cities. Um, and then that's when you get really upset because you're like, oh my God, first world nation doesn't mean America and, you got your claws and everything. First world nation just means, hey, we got standard of living, right? That's worthwhile. And I don't know. I don't think Brazil, I mean, at least not the way it's been since I've been here, will ever get there. Because it's just the same old, same old, same old. We're seeing in the news that Flavio Bolsonaro is up for like being the next president. So it's like, what's going on? We're gonna get Bolsonaro, Lula, like ad infinitum. I don't know. I don't know. But I say that to just kind of put people at ease. I think, um, and who am I? I'm just Phil in Brazil. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But being here long enough and seeing how conflicts usually end up, I don't think Brazil is into a conflict. Is not a conflict country. I mean, just look at what happened with Lula and Trump. Again, like for me, that was not on the bingo card. I was a little bit worried. In fact, that was the one time I was a little bit worried. So I was like, what's going on? Like, why is Lula saying all this shit? Like, he actually thinks like Brazil matters to the US. Like what was it? I forgot. I think it was after the when the US bombed Iran. No, no, no. It was with the Bolsonaro stuff. And I don't know. I think Trump with the tariffs. Yeah, God, it's so much stuff going on. It's hard to keep track. Yeah, but Trump was threatening with these tariffs, and Lula was like, "Yeah, motherfucker, I'm this and that. You don't tell Brazil what to do." Man, that ended so quickly. I'm like, Lula, you're embarrassing yourself. Like, what the hell? It's like me telling Mike Tyson, "Yo, who you think you are?" Right? No, it's not going to go down like that. But I respected him for doing it. And I think that's what Trump respected because Trump, as crazy as he is, I think Trump respects crazy too. So when you come at him crazy and you're not afraid of him, they had a meeting and they became like best buddies, like that. All that died overnight. And I was like, what the hell? And look at these two. They're like a happy couple. And then they're like, we spoke for 2 hours. I think they bumped into each other at the UN meeting, and Trump came back, and everything was on the news. And he's like, yeah, you know what? He's actually a nice guy. Like, their eyes locked for whatever reason, and they just enjoyed each other's presence. And then before you know it, they're like, yeah, let's have a meeting together. And there you go. What is it? O Brasil é dos brasileiros. So that's the hat. And that's the famous Lula hat. Brazil is for Brazilians, and Trump's with the Make American Great Again hat. And it's funny when you get populists because at the end they're kind of the same people, but it's just okay. They have obvious policy differences, but a populist is a populist is a populist, and they're people. You know. Anyway, um, Trump definitely respects that. Yes, Imada. Like you got to come at him hardcore because he's hardcore. Although we do hear, if you are to believe Bill Maher and a few others, that it's definitely a persona. You know, it's almost like Hamlet. The play is the thing, and Hamlet just acts a fool throughout that whole play just to figure out who's with him and who isn't. Like who really murdered my dad. Uh, Trump's got a little bit of that, it seems, that he acts real crazy in public and he just says things to like they're all red herrings just they get everybody crazy. Because if you go down the line, he said a bunch of stuff and not all of it happens. And I'm not even saying about law stuff. He just says stuff to just measure. He's a salesman, so he's like, "What if I say this?" Okay, well, maybe I went a little too far. And then you'll see he'll walk that back like you never said it. It's crazy the way he does it. He's like a salesman. It's like literally a salesman. Like, didn't you say like just 2 seconds ago that this was like the best? Yeah, no. I mean, it is, but it's also like it's decent too, you know? And it's like, what happened? Uh, so Lula's the same. Man, Lula is such a malandro, I think. He's been president 3 times. Think about that. In a way, him and Trump have very similar, even presidential trajectories. Because Lula was president twice, but it was in a row. But then he left for the longest time, went to jail, and now he's president again. I mean, Trump just kind of split it up a little bit different because he was president once and then he ran, didn't make it, and he got president again. So it's these people, these two presidents that, as different as they may be on policies, somehow connect in this kind of weird way, and both kind of corrupt. But the only difference is that Trump has got a lot of arsenal and a lot of nukes in a weight of the American military and in Israel, right? We're not allowed to say that because that's anti-Semitic. Or then wait, was that on mic? Anyway, um, so that stuff does worry me. What is going on in the world? I mean, I stay up kind of late. I'm very much afraid of nuclear war, and I say that in a real sense. And not just like everybody's afraid of nuclear war. When I say in the real sense of like, I don't know, guys. I grew up through all the 90s and 2000s, and we've had some moments that seem tense, but it seems tenser now. It could be that it's just impression because there's so much news out, everything's so much in our face, so maybe it's just a psychological effect, but it doesn't seem like people want to actually resolve stuff, and that tensions are just flaring, and that at some point somebody's going to drop a bomb somewhere where they're not supposed to drop a bomb, and it could either be by mistake, or it could be for real, or it could be a false flag just to open the door to something else. But shit's going to pop off. Like, you just don't carry on conflicts for that long. Not those conflicts. I mean, there's some wars that have been on like for 50 years, like, whatever, Sudan and what, like the tribal wars. Okay, it's sad, it's horrific, it's genocidal, but that's never going to escalate to something other than just that little regional war that's just been going on forever. But you got like major countries like Russia and Ukraine for 2 years, with Europe kind of proxy warring alongside. That, like, you don't carry something like that for 2 years or more in something not go off. I mean, maybe you can. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think so. You don't do Iran and nothing comes out of that. You don't do what you just did in Iran, assassinating leaders, assassinating actually. I mean, in Iran is shithole, to use a Trump term. It's a shithole country, guys. It really is, in the sense of like who's in charge. The country itself is beautiful, and people that escaped Iran before everything went to shit will tell you that. And you know, I believe it. I have friends from that region. I've never been there. Obviously, don't have first person experience, but it's a horrible regime that kills gays. It subjugates women. It's not a good regime, but that doesn't mean we can't just go there and just start bombing their leaders to oblivion. So, and then not have any recompense. So all that stuff is scary. So again, when I say real sense of fright, that's what I mean. That something's gonna. You're playing around too much. It's one thing to get rid of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, who really had no power, no nothing, and then do that to Iran, which is a country. It's got 100 million people, damn near, and it had a supposed nuclear, capacity. So you're really playing with fire. So in that context, I much rather be down here in Brazil than in the United States, because I do feel at some point something's going to pop off in the United States, whether it's national, internal, or international. Something's going to pop off, and if it does, I will be happy. Well. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have it. Pete Imato was like, Iran does not have nukes, but access to, you know, or even access to things that could do a lot of damage. Let's put it that way then. Okay. Um, it can get ugly really fast. And being down here in the southern hemisphere, definitely geographically, we are a little bit safer. We have a little bit of a cushion from the brunt of whatever may go down, because it's like world-ending events. Pete, do you believe we will make it another 5 years, or do you feel the end is near? What's your
No.
position? Pessimistic or optimistic for the future of humanity?
Neither. It's not something I ever think about. Never crosses my mind.
Oh, it crosses my mind damn near
I
every
mean, I
night.
think we're in far more danger from environmental issues and health and safety issues than we are from war and conflict and all that stuff. Never think about it.
I wish I had your mentality. I'm the opposite. I don't think Mother Nature and all that ecological stuff figures itself out and we'll be okay. But I'm way more afraid of people than I am of the planet itself, you know? So I don't know. Down here is an option. Imara, I see you're on here. If you want to click in and give your 2 cents, I would love to have your perspective on this because you're one of the people that brought it up. And in fact, I can put the copy right here. But for me, it's a real fear. It's one of the reasons why I'm looking at cities to move to that are a bit outside of the big metropolises. And Brazil's got a lot of rich terrain. It's got a lot of places where you can grow stuff. It's very fertile. A lot of rivers, although not near the capital, guys. That's why I said I'm trying to get out of the capital. Um, and there's plenty of good food here. There's plenty of food. There's plenty of ways to get food, whether even through hunting or fishing, etc. So there's a lot of options. And if we do ever happen to have nuclear winter, which I hope we don't, but man, it's a lot of people dying in the last, I don't know. I mean, there's always been a war here and there, but this uh last ones here with Ukraine and everything going down with Palestine. It's a lot of people dying. Hello, Missy Mata.
Hey, hi
How are
everyone.
you?
I'm
So
No.
good. Oh, I don't have a little picture on my StreamYard. Anyway,
yeah, you
sorry.
it's not a problem. I mean, if you want, I think it's those three little dots. You should see three little
Oh
dots. And
yeah.
if you click on it, it'll say add my avatar or something like that. I think it
Oh
edit
okay.
avatar. It says edit name and then edit avatar. If it's the same as mine, at least it should say
Okay,
that.
cool. I
So
gotta
I'm
find
gonna
that.
I'm gonna I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm gonna mute us two, me and Pete, because I want to get your perspective. Because well, it's yours, and then it might be different than mine. So, guys, I want you guys to listen a little bit to Imada. She's been on the show before. I actually love the show that she was on for because she talked about education down here in Brazil, homeschooling, and just traveling with kids. She's got two beautiful kids.
Yeah.
Love them, love them, love them, love them, love them, and they're a reflection
Oh,
of her because I
that's
love her,
sweet.
love her, love her, love her. So she's got a whole lot to say here about this. So you got the floor. Okay, tell us how you feel
Oh
about
my.
this.
Well, let's see. What was the question you had just asked P? Hi Pete. You had
It's
asked. Yeah.
sorry, Pete. It was about if you had the choice. So let's think hypothetical here.
Hmm.
Somebody had to
Hmm.
pluck you. Boom. would you stay in the U.S. right now? Would you stay in Brazil? Those are the only two choices. You can't think of another
Oh,
place.
yeah,
They're
no,
between the two,
for sure.
and and
No,
then and then
no.
and then the part two of that. Let me just give you the part
Uh-huh.
two of that, so you can already get to it. Well, one is why, obviously, but
Okay.
and how do you feel about these conflicts around the world? Do you feel that they're going to affect life down here in Brazil? Yes or no? Because I think you're a bit more worried about it than I am. I think if you listen to my perspective, I'm like Brazil, nobody
Hmm.
really cares. But I want to hear your side because it's also, I think, a valid points that you make.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of whether or not, I'd rather be here or in the US right now with all of the instability, I would definitely say I feel more secure down here, especially as a parent. But I'm someone who has never been comfortable in the United States. You know what I mean? So it's like I've been spent since my daughter was one, we've been living in different parts of the world mostly. So we're only in the US sometimes anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, for me, Brazil just feels more secure, more stable, safer. I mean, I feel that is the experience I have as a parent here. That's why I know Brazil gets a bad rap for a lot of things, but really, it's to me, it's a more put together country than the U.S. has ever been for me. But everybody's different. Some people think that's real first class, first world living out there. I don't know. But in terms
Yeah.
of the impact of, huh?
No, I'm listening here because just the idea of how you feel safer here is interesting
Oh yeah,
than in the
seriously,
U.S.
safer
Yeah.
in every way. I mean, to go from living somewhere where every minute you have to be thinking about, and I'm talking about in recent times, being trafficked, something happening to your kids, your
Yeah.
school, the schools they're in being shot up, someone trying to put poison on your car door, or somewhere so that you can get poison, someone trying to get you with fentanyl, drugging you. I mean, come on, like the United States is a hellhole, and I've always felt uncomfortable there. So that, I mean, I'm talking, my daughter's 20, almost 21 now. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just my perspective. I've spent my whole adult, like, motherhood trying to stay the hell away from that place. And so that's where we're at now. And now with the conflicts, um, I mean, I felt way better being down here than I think I would anywhere else. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily worried about Brazil getting caught up in these things, but the reality is especially when it comes to the energy situation and the oil and the way that they are holding up the oil there in the Strait of Hormuz right now, in the GCC, in that area, that is going to be a financial impact, I think, on the globe potentially. But in terms of like outright warfare, nuclear, and all of that, that no matter what is going to be a ripple effect if it
Yeah.
happens. But I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like we are in a pretty good position here in the South to just lay low and watch. Brazil is a very kind of diplomatic kind of country to me. It's a very much a balancer to kind of likes to stay out of a lot of conflicts. And I think we're in a good spot. But I don't trust that regime at all. I mean, the fact of the matter is they are going wherever they want based upon whatever it is they feel like they want to do. And they're doing it without any kind of real forethought. They have no strategy and nothing is planned out with what they're doing in the Middle East right now. It's a shit show, and they're getting their asses whooped out there right now, supposedly, if we can believe anything the media says. So, the fact of the matter is they'll go wherever they want to go and do whatever they want at this point. So hopefully we're good down here, though. Oh, nobody really thinks about Brazil like that, like you said. So,
Yeah, I think that's
mm-hmm.
the only silver lining. By the way, I got your Instagram up here. Guys, follow my friend
Okay, okay.
Nimata. She talks a lot about raising her kids and even some holistic stuff, which I love, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Yes, and just life in general, just being a person
Yeah,
that's out
man.
there doing it, and that's the type of people that we like in our lives. And but I'm with you. Like, I'm a little bit worried with that, so I'm already very careful with my spending. Last year was
Mhm.
really rough. I managed to end the year in the positive, but it was like barely like scratching to get to the positive because of
Mhm.
all the instability around the world, and it's mostly because of what the US is doing right now.
Mhm.
And it's tough because what else is the US supposed to do? Because a new guy came into the presidency and he wanted to go back to doing what he was doing before, just that the Biden administration kind of took the country in a totally different direction. So there's no other outcome other than this. I think it was okay to kind of manage that. And in some cases, I mean, Imad and I, we've had a little conversations about investing and everything. It wasn't all that bad. Let's just put it that way. Uh, but
Right.
then when you start getting into all this warmongering, that's where I say on my other
Mhm.
little video series that I put here, because like I said, I don't like to talk too much U.S. politics here because I like to focus on Brazil. But on those other videos, I go a little bit more hardcore. And something I've been repeating a lot is that we need to really start getting out of this left versus right mentality and realize it's us versus them, because even the
Mhm.
MAGA folks are split. They have split completely. I have a
Yep.
very good friend, most of you know on Facebook, if you follow me on Facebook, who's voted for Trump 3 times. And I scroll down his page, and like, we didn't vote for this. What is this shit? Da, 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 da. Like, he's so listen to the people that you think are your enemies because they're on the right or on the left. Just stop, drop, and roll. Like, stop, right? Listen to them. Maybe you guys will have more in common than you think. And then realize who really is the enemy are the people up top who put stuff out there to divide you, who make you scream fascist, fascist, racist, racist, blah blah blah. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but like, you're crunching everything down to these little sound bites, and you're not actually having conversations. And then you realize, oh, we're all getting fucked, right?
Yeah.
Because this was the guy that said, hey, I didn't have any wars. I don't want war. Like, look at his debate. Look at him versus Kamala debate. Kamala was foaming at the mouth, waiting to go into Ukraine. Like, that's one of the reasons that I didn't like that bitch, because she was foaming at
Yep.
the mouth. Like, yeah. And Trump, to his credit, was like, no, I actually want to end the war in Ukraine. Like, and then he made his promise, right? That he hasn't, that I can get it done before I even get into office. But okay, you're definitely giving us a strong message that you're anti-war. That's a positive. I'll give them that. But then what's going on right now?
What's
It's
going
very
on?
precarious, right? It's very dangerous
Very
for the world.
precarious. I agree.
Well, and it's like you said, Imara, it's something that has a ripple effect, even if it doesn't go nuclear. But it's not, you just, I don't know. I mean, just like, when things like this happen, I always think about it in reverse. Like, imagine if somebody dropped a missile on the White House and wiped out everybody. Like, that country would be gone. You know, like, the U.S.
Right.
would retaliate. Like, it would become a golf course. Which I think is what Trump kind of holds over their head. So he's gambling. He's playing both sides, and he's playing a very dangerous game. I wrote a little article
Oh
about
yeah.
this on Reddit, where he's playing a dangerous game because he's being manipulated. We know by what country. We can't say it because
Oh
we're
yeah.
anti-Semitic if we say it. But ever
Right.
since a certain country got involved in affairs a little bit stronger, and especially with these Epstein files and some of the stuff that's in there, and some of the stuff we know about who Jeffrey Epstein was, as soon as that started getting a little bit stronger, it seemed like Trump kind of did a 180 on a few things. And especially one was the release of the
Mhm.
files, and two, is on his war stances and what he was willing, how
Yep.
far he was willing to go to help an old friend. And once that happened, then it's like game over, right? There's not much you could do. So the thing is this, like, so that's the one thing, because he's trying to play Israel, but then the other side of it is that he's got his base that was really like, yeah, you said make America great again, and agree with Trump or not, he does kind of keep his promise. You know, we're going to close the borders, we're going to kick out all the illegals, we're going to keep America jobs here. Okay, that's what you campaign on, not we're going to blow up Iran and we're going to maybe help rebuild Palestine and put some Trump towers there. And then that's not what you campaign on. You campaign on agree with the policy or not. It's America first. And I think what he's trying to do, Imada, is hopefully pray that it's fast, quick, and has the fury of Trump behind it, quote unquote. That if you guys even think about attacking us or doing some terrorist action, we would just nuke you. But the thing is, Iran has a lot of allies, man. A lot of allies around the world. So it's like you don't just nuke Iran and then the world just says, oh, okay, I guess America did it
Well,
again.
yeah. I mean, Iran has
He's
people who
fucked.
I think that they have allies in that a lot of countries don't like
Mhm.
seeing their sovereignty being threatened. But I don't know how many are
Exactly.
backing them up right now. I mean, they're kind of on their own. I mean, they have little small factions in Yemen and different, parts of that area, but they don't really have anyone who's really trying to go, fight with them like that. So they're going ham out there because they're like, we never aggressed on anybody. They
So do you
they
think
don't
it's gonna be?
aggress on people. They've never aggressed on anyone. So that's why
Do
they're
you
going off. Hmm?
do you think it's gonna be over soon?
Not at all. I mean, no, because the thing is, both parties are hitting it so hard. They're kind of getting low on certain things, but supposedly they have a lot of missiles, and they're ready to go for the long haul if they need to. And so I don't know that it'll be over soon because I supposedly Big T was talking about some kind of peacemaking conversation or something today, and Iran was like, "Nope." So that's not a good sign. Um, so it's
Yeah,
hard
but
to say,
you
man.
don't. But it's crazy how blatant it is. You know that they killed. There, it's like a public assassination. It'd be like somebody
Right?
from another country, and the world just was like, okay, like there was no reaction from the world other than condemnation. But anyway, strange times we live in. That's why I
Right.
prefer to be down here and just deal with people that don't know how
Mhm.
to use a turn signal. Okay. And there's a lot of people down here that don't know how to use turn signals.
That's a fact.
Yo, I'd rather deal with that than deal with, are we going to get involved in World War III and Armageddon? And I got to find out this story. Pete, do you see this crazy story about possibly in the U.S. military? They're like, we're fighting this for Christ, so Christ comes back.
I was
What
about
the
to
hell?
say that.
Pete's like,
No.
yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so that's the other part of any of these conflicts that
Crazy.
gets you a bit more worried is that we have people in these conflicts that actually would go till the end because they feel that that's
Mm-hmm.
when it's like the last minute finish in Lord of the Rings. It's like, yeah, we actually have to have an army almost decimated for our Messiah to come and wipe
Exactly.
out the infidels. So, man, that's worrisome. That's like Doctor Strangelove
That was
weird stuff.
worrisome. I think I
Yeah.
heard about that yesterday or something. How those generals were telling the all of these people, like all the soldiers, yeah, that Trump was sent by Jesus to actually do this and to start off and kick off Armageddon. Like, is this is a movie? Are we in a movie? This is crazy.
It's quite possible that we are
Yeah.
actually in a
Well,
simulation.
but I don't want to take you off. I know we're focusing on Brazil, but I
Yes.
mean, do you go back to like the 90s? Were you like someone that read any William Cooper or anything like that? Like, were you
Yes,
into
I
that kind of
did.
stuff?
I did. Did you do it, Pete?
Yeah. So a lot of that stuff is coming
No.
forward.
Okay.
Behold the pale horse and stuff like that. So, yeah, some of those things are seeming to be coming to pass right now. Hmm.
Yes, there's a plenty of things that used to be conspiracy and now are just this is what is actually happening. So who knows? Who knows? Everything does feel kind of um one. What? Let's put it this way. It seems like there are people that actually really, 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 really do not want peace. You know, they've made it clear that they do not want to have a conversation, and that includes Putin up in Europe. Although I think there's a better chance of that ending because although it does involve land, and land brings all that tribal stuff out of humans, but it seems like humans tend to figure that out in the end of like, let's not decimate the land because both of us need it. So if it comes to a point where we're just gonna destroy ourselves and the land, seems like humans have figured out how to end certain conflicts up to now, but not when it's religious, man. That's when it gets insane because then it's like you got to fight till the end for the last minute save. So you have a country right now that's run by conservatives, which are more religious by nature. You got a conservative government in Israel right now. And by the way, guys, Israel's like any other country. There are people in Israel that are not fans of the current government in Israel. There's left wing governments, there's right wing governments. So when we say Israel, talking about just the government of Israel, and then you got the great the extreme Muslim guys coming out of there. So they're all waiting for the Messiah to come. You know, well, one is waiting for the Messiah to come back. Actually, two are
Hmm.
waiting for the Messiah to come back, and one is waiting for the Messiah to come, and they're all different messiahs. That's the crazy part because one is going to be Jesus, according to scripture. The other's going to be who knows who, because that's the Jewish Messiah hasn't come yet. And I believe in Islam, is it Muhammad that's coming back, or is it Jesus too? I don't know. All I know is that
I
it's
don't
like
know.
it's
I don't know.
all I know. It's a
A
lot
lot of
of stuff.
insanity, though.
Exactly. So that gets me to just where I say, guys, if it's too much for you up there and you feel like you got to go somewhere, Brazil might be the spot. Like Amara was saying, we don't want to say it too loud so that people don't come in hordes. Let's put it that
Right.
way. Don't come in hordes.
We want Brazil to stay under the radar in a certain way,
Yeah.
because once you start too many people start, yeah, it's just too much attention on a place right now. I don't think it's good, especially in terms of because they're paying attention to everything in the United States. They're paying attention to where people are going. They're shutting off people's passports. They're getting all up in people's business right now. They're really really doing a lot of surveillance right now. So we don't want it to be like, oh, why is everybody going to Brazil? Like we don't want too much attention on Brazil. Like, leave us alone.
Exactly. We
We
got
got
a
a
nice
good
little
thing
group of
going.
people. Yeah. But
Yeah.
if you do come, it's just one is respect the country, please. Know that it's a rough country to live in as far as getting stuff done. But once you get into the rhythm of the place, it's really nice. And then you eventually get to a place, I think, Imara, where you even know how to live outside of the big cities. And now I think is the perfect time for that because the internet, because the world is smaller, because you can work from home. It's a good time to be able to be self sufficient, be able to grow stuff, be able to just live minimally. I think it's very important. I think Brazil teaches that too. That's something that I didn't get for a while because I saw here in Brazil, and it, it was really weird. Um, that all my students would travel, but I wouldn't. And I'm like, how? Why are all my students traveling? Well, okay, I guess they're paying me, so they must make a little bit more than me. But it's like, man, it seems like they travel every fucking month, and I'm here fighting to pay the bills. And then I realized, why am I trying to keep up appearances living in Moema in this expensive neighborhood? Da 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 da. And then when I started going to these friends' houses, I was like, man, they live in these like humble little homes. There's nothing special. Do 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 do. And then sometimes they live with their family. And then I realize, oh, now I know why they're traveling because they got enough money to travel because they're not spending 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 reais on rent. Wow. Okay. That makes all the sense in the world. So when I came to Butantan, okay, which is a region here in Sao Paulo, I liked it because it's a little bit greener, there's more houses, and it's just a regular old neighborhood. It's just like imagine your average neighborhood in the US, like not incredible, but not like ghetto, just okay, just your average neighborhood. That's kind of where I live, and there's many areas in Sao Paulo like that. And I realized, oh, I spend less when I'm over here. I can budget more. And guess what I started doing more? I started to travel more. I was like, okay, I unlocked the Brazilian mystery, right? So you meet Brazilians that actually make a decent salary that live kind of minimalist. You'd be surprised, because they understand that Brazil is about being outdoors, it's about being in community, it's about just exploring the world. And I don't know if it's maybe therapeutic too, because it's like you got to deal with the system here, and the system is busted. I like in the U.S. we like to say that a lot. The system is busted, but you know what? I don't think the system in the U.S. is busted. It's malused and it's screwed up, but I think you can still fight the system enough in the US, like you know what the parameters are to be able to fight it. Here in Brazil, it's like where do you even start? So like there it's not busted, it's just like it's fucked up. Like somebody just boom, put that shit up against the wall and you just gotta go there and like yank it out. Here, I don't know. Like where do you even start? It's a lot of stuff. So I I think people do two things to get away from that. One is that they just figure out ways to manipulate the system right back, which I kind of the longer I live here, the more like I appreciate the malandro, and I get the malandro, and I get why he becomes a national hero because it sucks when you're like at the butt end of the stick of a malandro because you just got screwed over, but the more you understand how fucked up the system is, you're like, yeah, I actually support the malandro, which is the coyote character down here. It's the guy that's gonna try to scam you and weasel you. And it just makes sense now. I'm like, okay, I totally get the malandro character and why he's a folkloric hero. Um, and so people do this to just survive down here, but and I think travel is part of that too. Travel is part of their way to just get away from the system, leave it behind, and just enjoy what Brazil has to offer. And Brazil has so much to offer. Oh, guys. Anyway, I rambled on. Imada left. She's got to get some rest. Sorry, Imada. I was waning poetic, or waxing poetic, I should say. But I think I am waning. I'm getting tired. And this cachaça is very good. Pete, I had you on mute, bro. Sorry. Uh, I got some comments here, guys. And what does that say, Pete? Because the screen got real small. Let's test Pete's eyes. And actually, Pete, actually, this is a good time for Pete to tell us exactly what happened with his eyes. Uh, but let me just try to read this. It's very difficult to read right now for some reason. Oh, okay. Did the president of Brazil speak out against the U.S. military kidnapping Maduro, the president of Venezuela? What is the government of Brazil's relationship with Venezuela and Cuba? Man, I don't remember President Lula saying much about that, but I might have to look that up. I think that's when Lula and this was post Lula and Trump becoming best buddies. So I think Lula might have kept his mouth shut, but I'll look that up right now. I'm not sure. And what is the government of Brazil's relationship with Venezuela and Cuba? Very close, guys. Extremely close. Pete, you know a little bit about this.
Not really.
Really? All right. Well, give me a second here. I was trying to multitask, and but let me see. Um, Brazil. Well, actually, somebody look that up because I can't do two things at the same time. But I'm pretty sure that Lula didn't say much. I can't remember him saying that. So somebody look that up and put it in the comments. Repeat if you look it up to let me know. But as far as Brazil's relationship with Venezuela and Cuba, guys, it's very, very, very close. And that's where, and I might get canceled for this, whatever. Like, there's people that don't like this take on this part of Brazilian history, but for me, I think it's the more honest take. Is that Brazilian didn't have a dictatorship; it had a military junta, and there's a big difference of that. There's a reason why the military took over, and it only shows to me why Brazil is like Israel said, and diplomatic dwarf. Like who's worried about what Brazil does? What Brazil represented for the U.S. and the Soviet Union during the Cold War was the largest landmass, a friendly country, beautiful country, the nutrients, the minerals, the riches that you could extract from Brazil, right? So when the Soviets get over to Cuba, what do Soviets do? Same thing Americans do. They try to just send their little minions out. And eventually the minions get to Brazil. Eventually the Brazilian government gets a bit more leftist than the Americans feel comfortable with. And that's where Dilma comes in and da da da. Right? And then the CIA does its thing, as it usually does, and they put in a right wing government. But there were elections and there were different presidents. In fact, I think one of the first black governors was out of this in Bahia was during this time. So there were elections. So it wasn't a dictatorship. There wasn't just one leader. I think if you're thinking Pinochet, I guess that would be more of a dictatorship. Although I'm not sure how they categorize that one, Peter. Uh, but here in Brazil, there were plenty of presidents, like, and they would stay in power for just 4 years or whatever. I think it lasted what it was from 60 something to like 81 or so. But I say this to say what? America is always worried if Brazil starts getting too close to left wing governments. In Brazil, because Lula is a socialist by his own words, and I say that neutrally, guys, not oh my god, you're a socialist. No, that's what he said. He is this. He's a socialist. Dilma says she's a socialist. They are part of the Workers' Party, as if there's any doubt as if to what they ascribe to. Plenty, and they're very close allies to the Brazilian Communist Party. So that's what they're more closer to, right? Doesn't mean that they are that in practice, because when they're in power, Lula actually gets criticized by the left for being a bit too centrist, and being less about the revolution and more about lining his own pockets. That being said, he usually aligns with more left wing issues, especially when it comes to global politics. So that's where he's in the BRICS, and they're always trying to push for another type of currency. So they're not under American rule. And when it comes to Maduro, of course, he was a big supporter of Maduro, of Chavez, because that's their version of a leftist workers' party. He actually I believe he did a commercial, like a political ad for Maduro. So they're very close. His campaign gone, which I think was supposed to be illegal, but whatever. Uh, yes, even with the Israeli Palestine issues, yes, he's gonna go. Even though, guys, that shouldn't be a left right issue. Like, yeah, that's genocide. But we can't say that. Uh, but yes, but right from the beginning, because I think the left were, and congratulations, were ahead of the game on that and calling that for what it was. Eventually, some of the right, you know, woke up and realized it was what it was. So their relationship is close. Fidel Castro, when he died, that was like a sad day for Lula and Dilma, and they cried and they talked about their time. They would visit Fidel and blah, blah, blah. So that's their political ideology. I'm just saying that neutrally, guys. I mean, it's not something that I ascribe to um, politically, but to each their own. But the thing is this, it's like, is that is Brazil's like too it's Brazil's biggest concern is like carnival. Really it is. Like at the end of the day, it really is carnival, and it's got to be the best carnival ever. Cuz even with Bolsonaro, like when people were freaked out about if Bolsonaro becomes president, he's going to become a dictatorship and that, or not a dictatorship, a dictator and da. Guys, you really think Bolsonaro had enough brain power, enough willpower, enough even just machismo and capacity to get the entire Brazilian army behind him to take over the guy was a buffoon. He got elected because he got enough people that were not his base to vote for him based on the fact that he said he was a buffoon and he was going to let the one guy take care of the economy and the other guy take care of that and the other guy take care of that. He was going to sit back and stop saying dumb shit, which he did for a little while until COVID came in and he started blabbing his mouth again and saying, "Hey, I'm not a undertaker. I'm not an undertaker. Not my problem." So he deserves to be in this jail that he's in right now. But like he's a buffoon. So I never for once was I worried, like, oh my God, Bolsonaro is in power and now he's gonna be the new Brazilian dictator. It's like, on what planet? Because Brazil just doesn't run that way. It doesn't take shit that seriously. Even during the junta, like compare the number of people. And again, it is not to minimize anybody that died during that period because that was a horrible thing that happened. So when I say things, guys, I'm just saying like what happened. It doesn't necessarily mean I agree or disagree with it, right? During the junta, and so there was torture of people. People died. There's plenty of Brazilian movies. Pete and I just did a show on Brazilian movies, and if, a lot of them deal with that period. But if you compare the numbers, and this is just factual, like, yo, in the same period of time, like Pinochet, whatever, they were killing like thousands and thousands. Like, there's a lot of people in Brazil. I mean, I think the number, let me see how many, like maybe 2,000, 3,000. It's not a lot compared to other countries. Like, it was like, it is, but it isn't, right? Because they're tough and they're like, this is what the country's going to be like and we're going to control this. But really, there was censorship, definitely. Caetano Veloso got taken out of the country. But at the same time, you look at the artists that stayed, like you got Secos e Molhados, Nem Mato Grosso comes out at the same time. You got some very risque art and this and that and the third. So it's like Brazil usually is. It's complex. Just because you say, oh, this era of Brazil, the military was in power, but there were elections, just that you had to elect within the generals who's going to be the next president. That, oh my God, this is the darkest period of Brazil. A lot of people remember that time fondly, and not because they're fascist or anything, because it's like they couldn't really tell the difference. Okay. Uh, so Brazil is like that. It's very complicated. Like when I grew up, I remember Brazil as a small boy. I grew up during the beginning of democratization, as they call it. I couldn't tell you. Like I noticed nothing different from living my 6 7 years old, whatever, when I was still in Brazil, because I did do first grade. So however old you are when you do first grade, and doing first grade in the US. The only thing I remember about the thing that was majorly different is that, okay, in the US, I was in the suburbs. Well, there's a lot of trees. And in Brazil, it was a little darker, and it was like Gotham City. I like the images I have of Brazil as a child is like a lot of buildings, dark, Gotham City. But it was just life as usual. So it's kind of weird how Brazil operates. And that's why I don't get worried about whether or not we're gonna suffer some great attack from the US and stuff like that. That was a bit long-winded, Pete. You gotta cut me off, man. Uh get to your co-host duties, brother. But I'm gonna put you on the spot because now I'm gonna put the mute myself and you're gonna tell me about your damn eye because that shit's crazy. And then we're gonna go to bed.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. It's way past my bedtime. Just I I had my cataract surgery. My right eye is better, and yeah, my left eye still needs to be done in about a month or so.
But I'm glad you finally got to it because, well, how long ago was it when you started the eye journey?
Um, Not that long actually. It was pretty quick. I mean, I noticed they were getting pretty bad in late November. I finally saw someone at Clinicus and like a few days before Christmas. So like from the diagnosis to the first surgery was 2.5 months. Pretty quick.
That's pretty good, and that's all through Seuss, right?
Yeah.
But so what? Why do you need to wait? I guess just to let one eye heal.
No, they only perform the surgeries at certain times, and they don't do both eyes at once because you'd be pretty fucked if they did. You'd be functionally blind when you get out.
That's crazy. But how is it now? I think you put something up on your Facebook, like you said, you seem better than you have in 30 years.
Out of my right eye was functionally blind. All I could see was shadows and light. Like
Wow,
if I closed my left eye, my right eye was just a pure cloud that you could see some shadows and movement out of. But
that's crazy.
now it's like I put my computer settings back to normal, and that's with my left eye still having a cataract in it. But
Hmm.
with the right eye fixed, everything looks pretty good.
That's really good. I'm happy because I was worried about this with you, but well, Pete is a living testimony, guys. That Seuss does work. Uh, and when is the next one scheduled for?
It's not scheduled yet. They said they'll let me
Oh,
know. Probably like within a month.
I got you. I got you. All right. Well, guys, this is a long show. Next week we will have a guest. It's a G side. Honestly, I agree that being anti-Zionist isn't being anti-Jewish. Yeah, guys, today I went a bit off there at the end, but it happens sometimes. Okay. Um, and I will see you guys pretty much next week. We will have Renee on, who's a positivity life coach. Real cool guy. He's got a lot of cool content. He's going to give you a lot of cool information about living in Rio. Okay, so we're going to have a Rio de Janeiro guy on because we haven't had one on in a while. Well, we did last year, but it was like in November, I think. And he is going to just talk about his life down here in Rio, how he maintains a positive attitude, getting yourself confident down here, and blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a good time. Okay, so I hope you guys are here for that. And this is the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust. I'm signing off. I'm so glad to have you guys as an audience. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to do this show, and I want to continue doing it. And just having your support makes it worthwhile. So please like, subscribe, share. If you had a fun time tonight, we'll be back probably on Wednesday next week. And have a good night. Bye bye. Oh, we're trying to get off the air, Pete. Wait up. Oh, now we're getting off.